breaking news coming in at the south from Venezuela. We're getting important information that the Venezuelan president Nicolas Maduro has been brought to New York. Now, Maduro, remember, was captured and brought to the United States. Maduro as well as his wife have been captured from their home and they've been brought aboard the US warship plane carrying, of course, the deposed leader. The warship plane has in fact landed in New York. This is the latest that we're tracking at this hour. We're getting information that the Venezuelan president Nicolas Maduro has been brought to New York. Remember that he was captured alongside his wife by, of course, the US troops. He's been brought to the United States. He's been brought to New York in a US warship plane. This is the latest that we're getting you at this hour, visuals of which present on your screens at the moment.
Are giving some details about the U.S. military operation that led to the arrest of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. President Donald Trump says U.S. troops had been practicing on a replica building of Maduro's presidential compound in Caracas. And when troops got to the actual compound, Trump says they were armed with blowtorches in case they needed to cut through the walls of a safe room. The U.S. president says Maduro wasn't able to get into that room and couldn't quite close the door before he was apprehended.
Well, this, of course, is the latest information that we're tracking from Venezuela. Important to understand that the US President Donald Trump has also made a statement where he's gone on to say that the United States will, in fact, govern Venezuela till there is a judicious transfer of power to a legitimate authority. Now, in the latest that we're getting at this hour, the Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro alongside his wife have been brought to New York. Remember that they were captured by the United States and they have been brought in a US warship to New York. This is the latest that we're getting at this hour. Remember that the leader faces several charges when it comes to the United States. He earlier was also indicted in the year 2020. Now, in the latest that we're getting at this hour, he has, of course, reached New York and is in fact facing multiple criminal charges, including that of narco-terrorism. This is important information that we're tracking at this hour. Remember that the US president also spoke about how the operation was carried out, saying that there weren't any people from his country that were impacted in the entire tragedy, although they were injured. However, the US troops returned safely without any injuries. He's also further gone on to say that it was in fact a helicopter that brought Nicolas Maduro as well as his wife to, of course, the United States. Well, some more breaking news coming in at this hour in the Venezuelan conflict with the United States. In the latest that we're tracking, the US President Donald Trump has said that he, in fact, watched the strikes on Venezuela live. Now, this is what the US President has said. And he, in fact, has even gone on to say, and I quote, that it felt like watching a TV show. Now, this is important information that we're tracking as the US President Marco Rubio as well as Pete Hegseth were monitoring the US strike in Venezuela last night. In fact, the US president has confirmed, saying that it felt like watching a TV show. In fact, as for reports, we're getting information coming in that the Venezuelan president alongside his wife were in fact dragged out of their beds as the US president watched on. This is the latest that we're getting. Remember that Trump, Marco Rubio as well as Pete Hegseth were monitoring the US strike in Venezuela last night.
Mar-a-Lago, where President Trump announced the capture of Venezuelan President Maduro and his wife after an overnight operation. The room was the famous tea room in Mar-a-Lago, where the president has spoken to troops on Thanksgiving and Christmas to say, wish them well over the holiday. The leaders were standing in a row, and they really were very subdued and serious. This was not a joyous occasion. They had hoped for a different outcome and in their words, given Maduro opportunities for a different outcome. But now they've gone in and seized Maduro and his wife. They've taken them to a nearby Navy ship where they will be taken from there to New York to stand trial for charges that have been filed some time ago.
Well, this is the latest that we're tracking at this hour coming in from Venezuela. The US president has in fact gone on to say that it felt like he was watching a TV show as he, of course, watched as the US struck Venezuela. Not just the US president, there was also Marco Rubio as well as Pete Hegseth that were in fact monitoring the US strike in Venezuela last night. In fact, The US president has also confirmed that it was his team, the troops that were practicing on several days. They say that they were practicing on a similar replica of the house of the Venezuelan president to understand how exactly it is that they would break in and capture the Venezuelan president. In fact, he's also gone on to make a stunning revelation where he says that the Venezuelan president was in fact about to reach his safe room. And that's exactly right before that the US troops in fact captured him as well as his wife. Now, this is the latest that we're getting at this hour. Just a while back, we also told you that the Venezuelan president has arrived in New York, where, of course, he will be facing indictment charges, including that of narco-terrorism. This is the latest that we bring to you in this situation. Of course, the US has struck Venezuela, and the US president was monitoring the situation from back home, and he said that it felt like watching a live TV show. This raises questions about what exactly is going to happen in Venezuela, given that there is a vacuum of power. There are also questions about the vice president being, in correspondence with the US president. There's also questions, about other people also trying to take in and get power. For instance, like Maria Correa Machado, there's also questions whether she, in fact, would be next in line or not.